this border war. Fans called it Moonshine Throwdown. I think that's the best rivalry name, an unofficial name, but the best rivalry name I've come across.
Yeah, unofficial that should become official soon enough.
Embrace it.
5 receivers at Duncan's disposal. Duncan stepping up. Hit! Ball is loose!
Big ball here.
Marshall thinks they have it. And the Horde do!
Here's the kickoff from Amaretto Curry to the Hilltoppers, and we are underway. And a fake reverse on the kick return. And here comes Townsend down the left sideline. What a way to start it for Western Kentucky on the road. And it is an opening touchdown return. And just like that, the Hilltoppers strike first.
Justin Rohrwasser to try to win it for Marshall from 53 yards out. It's got the leg. It is good! And the perfect season continues for Justin Rohrwasser.
Goes for 2. Going for the win. Western Kentucky going for the victory. Rolling to his right. Quick strike. And they did it! Western Kentucky has ended the perfect season into the hands of Willie McNeil. A shocker here in West Virginia. And it is over for Marshall. They end the regular season 11-1.
Welcome back to the Moonshine Throwdown podcast. Continuing the series of position group breakdowns this evening, Stephen and I are going to finish out the Topper offense. We're going to talk wide receivers and tight ends tonight, and nice little change of pace, Steve. Last time we were talking about offensive line, and who else was it? I don't remember who else it was. Running backs. And both of them were ranked low on the Phil Steele Conference USA rankings. Well, hey, let's finish it off on a high note. Phil Steele ranks this unit, it's not wide receiver unit, it's the receiving unit. So wide receivers and tight ends are together in that ranking, tied for first with Marshall and North Texas. So we started at number 1, and we're finished 1 as far as Phil Steele goes. Quarterbacks were number 1, and now the receiving unit is tied for first. Total on the roster, WKU Sports currently 17 wide receivers and 5 tight ends. Lots of action in the portal at these positions. A lot of action. A lot of guys out and a lot of guys in. A lot of guys out that were actually productive players, guys that we were kind of surprised to see go. But some guys, I guess, that they felt like they needed to go somewhere else or, try to get a fresh start or whatever the case may be. A lot of guys in the portal, both in and out. Portal out, of course, this is old news by now, but Ja'Cour Pearson, he's gone. He was gone after like 5 games or something like that last year. So that's super old news, but it still counts as the portal out. Therese Trainer, a guy you were huge on a couple of years ago that was starting to come on, and, ultimately decided to transfer out. Xavier Lane out. Jock Sloan, portal out. Fella by the name of Jeremiah Falls. Tyler Smith off to UT Chattanooga. Really, the only guys that are listed with a destination are Pearson, who ended up at Ole Miss, and Tyler Smith at UT Chattanooga. Everybody else, according to the 24/7 transfer portal webpage, hasn't found a landing spot yet. So let's see. Let me count that at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys. 6 wide receivers, and then there's a tight end that hit the portal out, Spencer Owens. That's a lot of guys, but in true, I guess what's going to become true Western Kentucky fashion, at least this year, lots of guys portal in. Daywood Davis comes over from Oregon, a huge speedster of a guy who should have his way with CUSA defenses. Trio of wide receivers, of course, if you don't know by now, trio of wide receivers from Houston Baptist, Jareth and Josh Stearns, as well as Ben Ratzlaff. A guy coming over from Notre Dame, Kendall Rahman, and D'Angelo Wilson, local kid, right? Coming over from Austin Peay. Wasn't he like was he an All-American or something like that? Or I thought he had some pretty high accolades while at Austin Peay. Do you recall what that was right off?
Yeah, he was an FCS All-American. Yes, sir.
Yeah, see, I thought that was the big playmakers making their way into BGKY. And, of course, a tight end. Initially, there were 2, but now just 1 that came over initially in the portal. Only one remains on the roster, and that's tight end Dane Saltarelli, comes over from Oklahoma. So, Steve, a lot of action in the portal, a very favorable ranking, and which is kind of surprising given all the turnover that we see here. Guys that had this, I don't know if I can call it a bulk of the stats, but had a lot of the production. Some guys returned that had the bulk of the production for the receivers at Western Kentucky, but so much action in and out in the portal, and yet this unit is still ranked tied for first. What do you got to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, the middle of last year, I mean, after Pearson went out, Sloan was out, Tyler Smith, I think those were all during the season. Then Therese Trainer, and some of the other guys were after the season. But, man, there for a while it was like red alarms going off with all the wide receivers just departing. And I think that was before, the OC hire, QB hire. So those were kind of rightful alarm bells going off. Like, man, all these guys are leaving. We're not having a great season. What's going on with the mass exodus? Then you kind of find out some of them might have just been offered a chance to go elsewhere, and for whatever reasons. And then it kind of surprised you with just all the net we threw out. We grabbed a lot of talent, a lot of people, big name schools. So you have to be excited with all the talent that is still there, given all those familiar names that left. And I think it really also says a lot about North Texas. I mean, they had their wide receiver one drafted in Jalen Darden, and they're still tied for first with us. I don't know a whole lot about them, who those names are, but I thought we were going to be clear-cut, deepest unit in the league. But if they're tied with us, I mean, that's great for them. But I'm really excited about, kind of all the weapons we have.
I look at this list and, we haven't even talked about the guys that come back, the guys that are still on the roster. And there are some dudes on that list that are returning for another year on the hill. And then you throw in all of this speed and a lot of this production. I know we haven't talked about any of the numbers, but when I get to some of these numbers for these guys that transferred in, you're going to, folks will be like, wow, okay. So there has been some marked production. Granted, some of it at the FCS level, well, a lot of it at the FCS level, but there's other intangibles that I'll mention with some of these other guys. And you're thinking, oh, okay, maybe we can utilize some of these guys in other areas. So let's talk about the returning production. Let's talk about we can't use the term projected starters like we do in other positions because there's just so many people. And if you're expecting some form of a pass-heavier offense this year, it's not fair to use the term starter because so many guys will probably be rotated in and rotated out, and whatever package you're trying to run, it's just an unfair term, really. So we're just going to end up basically talking just about everybody that's on the roster. So let's talk about the guys that return. Some guys that I know you're pumped about. Guys like Mitchell Tinsley and Craig Burt. You get Dayton Wade back healthy this year. He was looking like he was going to be a real weapon before it got dinged up a little bit. And Dalvin Smith is back. We saw a small sampling of what Dalvin could do, and then he got injured, and he's back again. He got injured just the other day, but we don't think it's going to be anything serious. And then we'll get into some of these transfers and their stats. But look, just these four guys I mentioned just now. Actually, five. Let's talk about Malachi Corley too. Tinsley, Burt, Wade, Smith, and Corley. What do you got here returning that you're really, really liking?
I mean, those guys, especially the big two, Craig Burt and Mitchell Tinsley, they go back there. They were JUCO teammates, came over, and both just kind of led our charge last year on the offensive side of the ball. Even though there wasn't a lot of production, they were kind of our go-to guys. Tinsley, I believe, was our leading receiver. He just was kind of that catch-all, reliable guy. Kind of reminds me of like a Jared Dangerfield from the past. Like if you needed somebody to just get you a play, get you a yard, first down, whatever, just find him. Throw that ball up to number 5, and Tinsley's going to make a play. Then Craig Burt's that big guy on the outside. Just a really tall target. Had a great Moss play in the game versus Liberty last year. That was kind of my introduction to him. Was, oh, hey, check out this guy. Made a play like literally right in front of me down the sideline. And you mentioned Therese Trainer leaving. He was that other guy I was huge on. He was going to be that other wide out on the other side of the field, but he decided to leave. But then you look at guys like Dayton Wade. You mentioned. Malachi Corley, it really kind of feels like everyone that we lost, when you name Sloan and Pearson and Lane, we have wide receivers with those same skill sets ready to kind of move right into those spots, whether you need a speedster, a slot guy, outside guy. I'm not going to say there's upgrades or it's better talent, whatever. I'm not here to make that call before games have been played this year, but I think the talent is there to be just as good as some of those guys that left. And I think just the total unit as a whole is unbelievable. Almost unfair, especially with the expectation of throwing the ball, the volume that we're going to have. Pick your poison. We're going to be running 5 wide and Josh Simon out there and Cofield in the backfield or Carruthers. Who do you guard? I don't know. And just – can the offensive line hold up? Can Zappy get the ball out? That's all I need to know. That's why those are my biggest question marks, because the talent position, the skill receivers, studs. I mean, I'm very, 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 very excited about them.
Yeah, it seems like I like what you said. You hate to see some guys go, but those guys that decided ultimately they needed a fresh start or whatever the case may be, the guys that were then in turn brought in fill the role. And they've been productive at their previous stops in whatever capacity they've had to be, they've had to perform. In the portal alone, you're bringing in 2, over 1,500-yard career receivers just in the portal. And you talk about Mitchell Tinsley, 6'1", 205 junior now, excellent comparison to a guy like Jared Dangerfield. Just that, hey, he's always open. So whatever you need, just zero in on him. And more often than not, he's going to get you the play. Craig Burt for sure going to be the big outside threat. And I don't know if that's something that you can necessarily pencil in that Western Kentucky has to have. It seems like a lot of teams like to have those super tall guys on the outside. And by and large, it works because it's, height is a definite advantage. And Craig Burt going 6'4", 205, also a junior. But we've seen in Western Kentucky offenses of the past that you didn't necessarily have to have a 6'5" guy out there on the outside to tear you apart. You mentioned Dangerfield. Lest we go back and talk about a couple more guys that were on that roster that Topper fans can go, oh, yeah. Lots of yards, lots of catches, lots of touchdowns. And that's Nick Norris and Taywan Taylor, right? Not huge dudes. They're not skyscrapers out there, but they would absolutely carve you to pieces over the middle, and they could run away from you on the outside. And if you look down this roster, you've got Burt that's 6'4", you've got Dalvin Smith that's 6'3", Davis is coming in at 6'2", and then that's, it starts to get a lot smaller after that. You got several sub 6 foot guys, and you got to think that that's a lot of speed to go along with that. It just generally works its way out that way. But Dayton Wade, a guy I thought was really going to have a great second half of the season last year, and kind of ended up dinged up and, didn't really get to see that come to fruition. But let's talk about this. I got to talk about, I mentioned the guys. Let me mention their stats from last year. Tinsley, you're right, which is your leading receiver last year in BGKY, 43 catches, 377 yards, 4 touchdowns. Here's the thing that gets me. The next couple of guys we're going to talk about is this yards per reception. Tinsley only 8.8. Craig Burt, 23 catches, 178 yards, 2 touchdowns last year, only 7.7 yards per reception. You can't have that. You just, that can't be that way. Everybody can't be 8 yards a catch, 7 yards a catch. There's somebody that's got to be that big 17, 18 yard catch average guy. And last year, if you look at it, it was Dalvin Smith at 14.5 yards per reception, but he only had 4 catches. So that's not sustainable. You got to have somebody that can just take the top off of it. And I believe we both believe that Tinsley and Burt can be that guy consistently, whereas the other guys may not have to be asked to do that as much. But Dayton Wade, 5'10", 180-pound sophomore this year, 21 catches last year, 180 yards, did not find the end zone, another 8.6 yards per reception. You see what I mean? And I mentioned Dalvin Smith getting 14.5 yards per catch, but I'd said only 4 catches, 58 yards, but he did find the end zone twice, which is pretty cool. And Smith coming in at 6'3", 190 pounds, redshirt freshman this year. What you got your finger on the mute button? I know you got something locked and loaded. What you got?
Well, just talking about those yards per reception. I mean, obviously we've kind of beat the cow to death about the quarterback issues last year. And just, we had a guy that was 5'8", 5'9" back there, couldn't see over the line. And anytime he wanted to throw down the field or practically throw it all, he had to scramble outside the pocket. And so many of those passes were, short into the flat where you're not leaving your receiver a lot of room to make those yards after a catch. In this type of offense, you love getting those guys in space and getting them some yak opportunities. And hopefully that's been cleared up this year, bringing in a Zappy, bringing in a Kitley. I don't think we're going to see that quarterback that has to roam around to be able to see his passing lanes and get those guys in space. I think we're going to have good 3 and 5 set drop plays and put the ball in the money and let those guys do what they're, paid to do, go make some explosive plays, which we all love. So, yeah, that I was itching to unmute because, the Piggy T saga and experiment was a little frustrating last year, but I think we'll be head and shoulders above that little, and I do say little problem we had last year.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you can start to see how it all kind of goes together. And Steven's right. You got a smaller quarterback, at least in the height department, and you have to all of a sudden create a good throwing lane, a cleaner throwing lane for yourself, and it becomes way more of a non-traditional type pass game, which doesn't really lend itself to super long passes all the time, but still. Be that as it may, you can see how things like these yards per reception, these low catch counts, these low yardage counts start to stack up and say, wow, it's okay. This is why we're a sub 20 point per game team in 2020. And you bring in the weapons to try to make that all go away. You got Zappy, who now we know will be the week 1 starter. Granted, he's not also a skyscraper. He's 6'1", but 6'1" ain't 5'8". I'll tell you right now, I wish I was 6'1". That'd make me a lot happier in life. But, alas, I fall closer to the Piggy T mold of quarterbacks. But still. All right, let's talk about some of these guys that come in through the portal. I mentioned David Davis before. Oregon guy, speedster, highly recruited coming out of Broward County, Florida. I remember when he was, in the recruiting cycle, it was just a guy that was highly, highly sought after. And of course, anytime you end up out in Oregon, you're doing something right. 6'2", 195-pound redshirt junior now, 10 catches for 102 yards and 1 touchdown in 20 career games at Oregon. So, at least through the pass game, the stats do not blow you away, but he did contribute on special teams in the kick return department. So that's something to kind of go, might be another weapon there for Western Kentucky on the kick return front. Yes.
No, yeah, I just talking about Daewoo. I mean, if you read the article that Rivals, I think, put out about him, I mean, he was so eager and hungry to get on the field at Oregon. They put him in the secondary. He was doing, like you said, kick return. He just felt like he wasn't utilized correctly. So that had to be the draw to come to Western. Like, hey, check out this offense. Check out what they did over here. Here's what we're about to do over here. Would you like to be, the shining centerpiece potentially with his speed and ability, his size? Yeah, he could have a monster year. Yeah, so I'm glad he came over, and I think he saw that, okay, this is an opportunity. I want to take that, because obviously they weren't utilizing him, but they probably have their own, plethora of weapons there that they have to choose from. So I'm glad he came over to us, because we'll definitely utilize that body and skill.
Of course, I did see a quote from Oregon head coach Mario Cristobal saying that Davis was absolutely the single most unselfish player he'd ever coached. And that just lends itself to what you're saying. He just wanted to be on the field. It's like, Coach, I'll do whatever. Just let me get on the field. And it just wasn't meant to be necessarily in Oregon. So, hey, all those talents get to come to Bowling Green, Kentucky, and try to light up the field here in 2021 for the Tops. Now we got to talk about a trio of wide receivers from Houston Baptist. Yes, the ready-made offense that comes in basically as a package, offensive coordinator, quarterback, and 3 wide receivers. Of course, we're going to talk about brothers Jareth and Josh Stearns. Jareth, 5'9", 195-pound junior. Listen to these stats at Houston Baptist, guys. 220 career catches, 1,971 career yards, and 18 touchdown receptions in 27 career games. Josh Stearns, 5'8", 180 pounds, just a freshman though. 13 catches for 403 yards and 4 touchdowns in just 4 games in 2020. Okay. And if you think, well, okay, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. No, wait. We haven't even talked about Ben Ratzlaff yet. 6'2", 195-pound grad transfer, 126 catches, 1,538 yards, and 15 touchdowns in 16 games at Houston Baptist. What? Are you kidding me? That is, what is that, 2,900, almost 3,000 career yards that you bring over, and 31, 41, 47 career touchdown receptions. Heaven's sakes. And I do feel bad because I didn't even, I ran out of room and I didn't even write the stats for D'Angelo Wilson from Ocean P, but if he was the FCS All-American, I'm sure they're pretty gaudy. So my apologies for that, but let's talk about these guys now. You got the trio from Houston Baptist. What more can you say? Has there been a better case scenario that you can even recall as far as a built-in offense with familiarity and chemistry?
No, all I could think when you were reading the stats is that good? I just wanted to quote retweet that and say, is that good? No, I mean, because that's just, the minute the Stearns brothers committed, and everybody's kind of knocking on the door, and I was one of them going, hey, are y'all bringing Bailey with y'all? And but yeah, we had to keep that in the wraps after the bowl game. But plug and play offense. I mean, that's just absolutely what that is. You got your OC, you're installing a new offensive play scheme, plays, just offensive calls, signals, stuff coming in, and you've got 3 guys on the field that can help relay and teach that information to the other people, as well as an offensive coordinator that already has shown kind of his brain power and ability to just give playmakers the room to go make plays. So, those 3 additions are just, they're huge. I mean, you add in a quarterback that they know and have a rapport with, and obviously a very, 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 very good rapport with. It's hard not to get excited and kind of understand, all right, maybe that's why Bailey Zappa was called the best quarterback in the conference, even though he's not taking a snap in this uniform, because the potential is absolutely there for him to just have a monster season. He's got all the pieces of the puzzle there. And I think that's the biggest question mark is, can we put all those puzzle pieces together and make a pretty picture at the end of the year? That's the question mark that we're going to have to answer as those guys get playing time and see what they do under the lights. But when you bring those 3 weapons in with the quarterback and the OC, you've got to be really excited because those are just mind-blowing numbers no matter what level it's at. That's great production. So we'd love to have them.
Yeah, here's the thing, though. It all seems like it's built for success. But I'm not trying to be the Debbie Downer here, but man, if this doesn't go right, what more can you ask for? I mean, you brought all the pieces in together. So I feel like there is a little bit of pressure on this passing game to work because you bring in a ready-made offense, and you can't even use the term plug and play because they're just changing clothes. Like you're not inserting new pieces. It's the same pieces. They're switching uniforms. So this is absolutely the most wild scenario that I believe I've seen in recent history in college football, as far as, like transfers and stuff like that. Like, yeah, some guys might go, a couple of, teammates might go somewhere or whatever, but never a quarterback at the receiving core and the freaking offensive coordinator. Never have I seen that happen at one stop in the same offseason. But who's to say that's not something we won't see more and more and more now with this transfer portal thing? Because, like you say, this is not going away. This is like the new recruiting tool that's probably going to be even more impactful than, the high school route, traditional recruiting. Tight end time. As if the cupboard was not, well, let's see. The cupboard is not bare by any means. Joshua Simon, one of the finest tight ends in Conference USA. But boy, if it doesn't get like, what are we going to do? There's not a lot of stats on the roster after that at the tight end position. There's some guys that played some games, but as far as receiving stats, there's not a ton. Joshua Simon, 6'5", 240-pound sophomore. See, he's been there for 3 years already. He's still just a sophomore. And of course we get to experience this with a lot of guys over the next 3 years, because we're gonna be like, man, it feels like they've been here forever, and it does feel like he's been here forever. 33 catches last year, 370 yards, 3 touchdowns in 12 games. 2020 Conference USA honorable mention tight end. Second leading receiver on the team, I believe, at least in yardage, because he's only 7 yards behind Mitchell Tinsley. Then it gets a little scarce. I mean, there's 4 more tight ends on the roster, but like I said, as far as receiving stats go, it's not a whole lot. You got Joey Belgian, 6'3", 250-pound redshirt sophomore. He did play 12 games for the Tops last year, but mostly in special teams duty. Dane Saltarelli, the transfer coming over from Oklahoma, 6'3", 255-pound redshirt sophomore. He just played 2 games in 3 years at Oklahoma, and both of them were the season openers. I believe I saw 2019 and 2020. So take that for what it's worth. I don't know if Dane's more of a blocking tight end or a receiving tight end. I mean, I would like to think that the guys they brought in, at least through the transfer portal and through traditional high school recruiting, are going to be more receiving tight ends, given what we think we know about this Western Kentucky offense. Alex Williams and River Helms are the 2 freshmen, both 6'4". Williams 230, River Helms 235. Tight end wise, Steve, it's kind of Joshua Simon and everybody else. What do you think about this unit?
Yeah, I mean, Josh Simon's obviously the centerpiece and the known entity, and you kind of expect him to have another big year. Obviously, with just the low output last year, was just kind of a byproduct of an offense that just didn't move the ball a lot.
Yeah.
Then talking about the other guys, I've seen Belgian down on the sideline. He looks huge. So when I see 6'3", 250, I'm kind of surprised, because he looks like 6'6" down there when I'm seeing him on the sideline. But if he's 6'3", that's fine. Then going down the line, the transfer, don't know a lot about him. Here he could be a good red zone threat. The one I'm excited about, and I've heard good things about already in fall camp, is River Helms. And I think we have discussed him before when we were talking about recruiting rankings. If I'm not mistaken, he's one of the highest rated recruits that Western's ever had. I think he's like in the top 3, if I'm not mistaken. So I think the fan base should be really excited about having somebody like him. If Josh Simon has a good year, he's draft eligible. He could leave having some. You always got to have that next guy. Or if you want to run a 2 tight end set, he could be that second guy, because I've heard great things about him. If he redshirts, fine, great. Getting 3-4 games of experience and redshirting, that's fine. But again, it's just there's a lot of unknown there. But when you have the offense kind of built for speed and built for production, you feel like some of those guys are going to get theirs, and it's not just going to be Josh Simon. So I'm excited about the entire group. So it is worrisome that there's only one with big production, but I think we're going to be fine in the tight end department.
Yeah, while you're talking about that, I'm looking that up, and you're absolutely right. River Helms listed as the number 2 all-time rated recruit, at least by 24/7 Sports. 3-star tight end, was that 0.8734? So almost an 88 overall. So yeah, lots of potential there. Don't be surprised if he's, cemented himself as the solid tight end number 2 or whatever. I mean, I'm not saying that we're not saying that he will, but just don't be surprised if it happens. But yeah, there's got to be there's got to be another weapon. Somebody else has to emerge. It can't just be Joshua Simon and then everybody else is just kind of there. When you land a guy like Helms that comes in highly rated, at least definitely as far as the Western Kentucky program goes, you expect some kind of immediate impact, however big or small that is, some kind of impact on the offense, especially when you talk about a situation where there's 5 guys and only one has any marked statistics in any uniform, not just a Western Kentucky uniform, but in any uniform. So all this we're talking about here, and we talked about a lot of guys. Oh, actually, while you were talking there a minute ago, I looked up, I did the right thing, and I looked up the Angelo Wilson stats. So we'll go back to that real quick, and we'll talk about what his career looked like. He's coming in as a graduate transfer to Western Kentucky, so it's a one and done year for him. But in his career at Austin Peay, it was 162 catches for 2,672 yards and 25 touchdowns, all ranking second in school history at Austin Peay. What? Okay, so we just went from almost 3,000 yards and 3 guys in the portal to now over 5,000 career receiving yards in 4 dudes in the portal. Okay, yeah, come back in here. I thought you'd like that.
Is that good?
Is that good? That seems good. Is that a lot? Yeah, that seems like a lot. It surely is. So all that being said, all these guys we've talked about, who are you most excited to see this year in 2021?
Well, I mean, obviously there's a lot of options there. I kind of want to piggyback a little bit off the spring game. And the guys that I saw, and a couple of these guys I don't think were on campus yet, but assuming Dalvin Smith is, healed and plays most of the season, him and Zappe seem to have a really good connection in the spring game. They found each other a lot, and he's a target, and he's fast. He's very athletic. Local kid, played at Glasgow, talked about last year, one of the most athletic, athletes, played basketball, can jump out the gym. I think he could have a good year if he's healthy. I think he's going to get the opportunity to shine. And then I think a guy that's kind of slid under the radar, haven't heard a lot talked about him, is the guy from Notre Dame, Kendall Rahman. I mean, anytime you bring someone from that quality of a program, he's a younger guy. I think he's a redshirt freshman, if I recall. Yeah, redshirt freshman. You're just talking about building depth. Even if he doesn't play a lot this year, he's going to get familiar with the system. And then we're going to have some upper class guys that could potentially leave, or if there's just a natural turnover of the portal, because there is only one football and, 20 plus pass catchers that we're trying to satisfy. The shakeup yearly is to be expected. Really excited to see him. David Davis, just when you have that much speed, you can take the top off. And then River Helms, just again, I've heard nothing but good things about him as a route runner and hands. I know. I didn't name one or two. I named a lot because, really excited about this group. And I think we're going to see a lot of production. And we're definitely going to see more than 19 points a game.
Yeah. Well, this is just, like I said, this is one of those positions where there's so much turnover, so much change, and so many new weapons, new toys, like you like to say. How can you pick just one guy when you're kind of excited to see half of the roster now? I mean, you're still excited to see the half that remained and see how they progress and develop in another year in a topper uniform. But now you got all these new guys, and how's it going to mix in? I mean, it's almost fair to say I'm just kind of excited to see the receiving unit, like everyone, because it wasn't necessarily what I would call an underperforming unit last year, but the offense was so stale. You said that so many times. It was just stagnant. It couldn't do anything. It exciting. You couldn't keep, fans engaged for a full 60 minutes. And now we might just be seeing the beginnings of the complete opposite of that, where everybody, every time you get the ball, is thinking we can make a house call at any given time, at any time in this offense. So yeah, it's almost really fair to say I'm just kind of excited to see everybody. I mean, Jiminy Christmas. How have we gone all these months? And we're on the Twitterverse fairly heavily, and at no point have I seen the words strung together. Western Kentucky transfers in 500 receptions, 5,000 receiving yards, and 50 touchdown passes. How have I not? That's not been a thing. Well, it might be a thing tomorrow. Like, if I got to do the math on that to get people to go, holy crap, are you kidding me? I didn't know that. Then I'm going to have to do that. Of the guys, the myriad of guys that we saw hit the portal out, who do you think is the biggest loss from the unit?
I mean, I think it's definitely Ja'Cour Pearson. I was a big Jock Sloan fan. Obviously, he had some injury issues. And Xavier Lane, I kind of always just like his build. He was kind of that big outside guy. But Ja'Cour Pearson was just always exciting. Get him the ball. He was kind of just a bowling ball when he had it. He was going to knock into somebody. He didn't care to take some contact, get those yards. He was always looking for the end zone. And it seemed like he was frustrated last year, even in game 1 against Liberty. I remember him specifically coming off the field, and you could tell he was upset about not getting the ball. I get it. You had a quarterback that couldn't get you the ball. But I think he was the biggest loss. He had a lot of production, was at Western for 4 years. So, but you're also happy to see he had the opportunity to go to the SEC, play with Ole Miss. And we'll, just because I'm a fan and he wore Western red for a long time, I'm still going to check up on him, see how he's doing, and wish him the best, even though he decided to move on and search for a better fit for him, for his potential to try to make a pro career out of this.
Yeah, I have to agree, and I don't feel like it wasn't a bad blood type thing, but if I'm not mistaken, was he not like a Conference USA second team receiver in 2019, and then you start 2020, and you're like, all right, man, look, I'm here, and you guys aren't freaking utilizing me. Like, what the hell? Like, we're not top to bottom just stacked with weapons, kind of like we're looking at this year. You're like, I'm your guy. I'm the guy to get us down the field, make the play, move the chain, whatever. And, I remember you saying that early on in the year, like he looks frustrated, like visibly frustrated. So it was almost like, yeah, you can see the writing on the wall. There's no need to stick this out. If you get 4 games and you can still redshirt, like if it doesn't get any better, like exponentially better real quick, then this may be the beginnings of the end. And ultimately that's what it was. So yeah, I'm with you. I think it was just frustration. It sucks to see him go. He made a lot of plays for the Tops, but now we'll see if he gets an opportunity to make some plays down in Oxford and, against some big time competition. So, breakout player, man, this could be a lot of different guys. So who do you think could be your breakout player, parenthesis players, in 2021 in this unit?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Jared Stearns. I think Tinsley and Craig Burt and Daewoo, I think they're all going to have great years. But I think somebody coming from an FCS school kind of has maybe a little bit of a chip on his shoulder and has the advantage of familiarity with the quarterback, that connection. I just think it's going to lend itself to a big year. I think he's going to find a lot of receptions. I think he's going to have a lot of yards and probably a lot of touchdowns. So I think Jared Stearns, the older brother of the Stearns, and then we also got the little brother. We'll have him for a few years, hopefully, God willing. But I think Jared is just going to have the big breakout year, the big, possibly first team all conference type year. I think he's going to be the guy this year.
Well, it's tough to argue against nearly 2,000 career receiving yards, and you get to play with your quarterback once again, and you get to play with your your offensive coordinator once again. That's an excellent pick, just from logic standpoint. Like, who's the ready-made, built-in recipient of all these pass yards and the offense and all the familiarity and chemistry? The leading receiver from years past. Who do you think is going to end up being the MVP of the unit? Now, remember, we're talking wideouts and tight ends, so I don't want you to just forget about Joshua Simon down there in the tight end column. But who do you think is going to be the MVP when it's all said and done?
Yeah, I'm not forgetting about the tight ends. No love lost for those guys. I just think there's so much speed on the field. I think that's going to be who's getting the majority of those targets. So my MVP, just so I'm not repeating names, I'm going to go with Daewoo Davis from Oregon. Just when you have that type of speed, that kind of world-class sprinter type speed on the field, and he has some good size to him, 6'2", 180. And add that to there's all these other weapons on the field. You can't just zero in on him. It's not like there's him and then a big gap and then other receivers. Like, there's so many other guys that are known names, and the conference is going to have to game plan. Okay, what kind of defense are we getting into? And then I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of pre-snap motion and just stuff moving around to confuse defenses. You better find number 18 or 18, 19, whatever he is, 18 real quick, because I have a feeling we're going to be celebrating a few house calls and running out some fireworks because of Daewoo Davis.
Well, again, I'm like personally excited for this guy as well, because I thought, very few guys stick in your brain from 4 years ago when recruiting cycles hit. And that's a guy whose name just stuck in my brain. And to see him actually make it back to a Conference USA team to where we would be able to see him a couple of times a year anyway. And then to have him land on one of the teams that we follow so closely is even better, because I've been wanting to watch this guy play. And now, yeah, you're right, to have him line up against the Herd potentially, this could make for some fire. You guys going to bring some fireworks when you come to Huntington with you? Are you just going to set them off in the student section or in the visiting section? Or I'm just curious if you guys are going to play that kind of game. But
I think we're just going to have Gabby doing throat slashes on the sideline.
Yeah. Is that so? Some teams have their mascot doing push-ups. Some teams have, whatever it is. The Western's just going to have Brandon Dowdy come by and throat slash for every point. And that's the new tradition. Hot take time. A lot of guys, a lot of turnover. Still some familiarity in the room from a year ago. Some known entities. I'm going to call them known entities. Tinsley and Burt are known entities. We're not 100% sure what we've got with Wade and Dalvin Smith yet. We think we know what we're in for. It's all going to be a matter of reps and chemistry, honestly, in my opinion. So what's your hot take for this unit this year?
I think, I'm just going to look at it as a unit per se. I think we're going to have multiple guys over 1,000 yards receiving, and I think we're going to have multiple guys with 10 plus touchdowns. I'm not going to say 2 or 3 guys, but 2 guys would be multiple. So more than one fitting that criteria, and probably also multiple first, second team guys. I don't think there's any way, if we produce like we're expected to, it's going to be hard to keep those guys off first and second team all conference when the season's said and done.
Yeah, if the conference doesn't do the, everybody gets a trophy kind of thing, and they're honest with themselves, if there's a team that is just freaking putting up yardage and numbers like crazy, then reward those guys. They earned it, right? So it'll be tough. It's always tough to land multiple guys on, a first team or a second team. But, if they do it and they deserve it, man, put them there. What the heck? Just put them there. Who cares? If Bailey Zappi is your offensive MVP at the end of the year, then he should also be your newcomer of the year. You know what I mean? It's like, don't pick one guy for one thing and one guy for the other. Who cares? If the guy earned it, then he earned it. But my hot take for this unit is I don't think we're going to see too many 7.7 yards per reception type stuff anymore. I think you said this before, and the more I've thought about it and looked at the numbers and let this whole potential offense digest, I think, Zappy, you're right. You said it way back when. I think he could compete, or not compete. What is the word? Yeah, vie for some of these single season passing records and stuff like that. And in order to do that, he's going to need 2 or 3 guys to really just have massive years on top of everybody else having a pretty good year. I'm going to say Jareth Stearns comes out of nowhere to land on a Biletnikoff Award watch list. Maybe a mid-year addition, because you're just not going to be able to deny, what he's doing. So that's my super hot take here. I should have just generalized that and said a receiver. So a new receiver is added to, but I'm picking one guy. I'm picking Jareth Stearns. I like you sold me on the rationale from a couple comments ago. It's built in and ready to go. Yeah, I like that. I'm going with that. Mark it down. Steve, we've closed out the offense, and we bookended it with some high rankings and got the lows in the middle, just like we did the compliment sandwich with the offense. We started out positive, talked about the negative, and finishing on the positive again. So we'll get into defense here shortly, probably more this week, actually. But as we get out of here this week, what do you got to say about I guess we can talk about not just wide receivers and tight ends, but since we're done with the offense, let's talk about the offenses as a whole again in some final thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, the offense is what sells the tickets. We kind of know that that's what's going to pack the stands. And, we were spoiled to the Brom years, Dowdy, Mike White, 40 points per game, kind of gotten away from that during Sanford and Helton year 1 and 2. Shakeups have been made, weapons have been added, just across the board. And if anybody that wears red is not excited about this offense and just knows what we're able to do or could do, capable of doing, they should get excited. And if anybody in the conference, an opponent, maybe is sleeping on what we have and what could possibly be rolling out on the field in conference play, I said it all along. I hope they do. I hope we're that underdog. I hope we come in quietly and you don't expect it, and then we just rob you blind and hang 20 on you in the first quarter. That's what I hope happens. I don't think that's going to happen, because I think the media hype train has already started in a lot of ways. But I think this offense is going to kind of carry the team. The last few years with Clayton White and his defense and just a lot of strong upperclassmen players, the defense has kind of led this team as far as keeping us in ball games, even when we weren't scoring a lot of points. I think this year is going to be, hey, we're going to score a lot of points. Sorry, we might put you back on the field a little quicker than you wanted to. We kind of saw that problem back in 14 and 15 as the defense was still gelling under Nick Holt and still learning. But it's a good problem to have. We want to score a lot of points. We want to outgun, especially in this conference. We want to hit that 30-point magic barrier that we only hit once last year, if I recall. I think that's something that we could potentially do, maybe every game. A couple of those games might be hard. The Army game might be hard to do it. Indiana, you just don't know how big of a fireworks show that's going to be. But, we potentially could go from 19 points a game, 30 points once, to 30 points every game. We could be 40 points a game. Having one of the best offenses in the country again is certainly not out of the picture. So the offensive side of the ball has been exciting, from quarterback to running back, wide receivers. All those positions are, just in my opinion, stacked and loaded. The offensive line is kind of the question mark when you only return 2 guys. So very excited about everything we've talked about. And then obviously when we get to the defensive side of the ball, that's going to kind of be where we're starting to look at some newer names, newer coaching, and and just trying to learn, what guys are ready to step up and make a name for themselves. Plenty of talent there, but also some unknowns as we start to look towards the defensive side of the ball here in the future.
Well, what's tough to fathom is that we've been hyping up this offense. We've been hyping up this team, and they still have the potential to start 1-3. We don't think they're going to have any problem with UT Martin. We really don't know what Army's going to look like. Western's had some good success against Army recently, but you never really know how they're going to stack up from year to year. Then you get Indiana at home, and you're going to Michigan State. So your first 4 games, you get a really mixed bag. You've got a game right out of the gate you should dominate. Then you've got a coin flip game that could go really either way depending on a number of things. Your first road game. So and you get a bye week, and then you got 2 Power 5 games, 1 at home and 1 on the road. So you could go 2-2. You could go 3-1. I am not at all shy from thinking that Western Kentucky can beat Indiana in Bowling Green. I don't think that's an impossibility, and I don't think anybody should think that's an impossibility. They're a good team. Of course they're a good team. But it still sticks in my craw, and maybe I should let it go, but I just can't, knowing that a team like Indiana, who vaulted into the top 25, vaulted into the top 15 from being unranked last year, after beating Penn State on a last-second play, then Penn State turns around and goes like 0-6. So that kind of stuff just sticks with me, and I don't think that's fair, because if any other team, if you play Penn State in week 6 and they're 0-6 and you beat them on a last-second play, you ain't moving anywhere in the polls. You know what I mean? Like, you're not. So that's just unfair. But still, Indiana's a good team. And, we love our guys at Home Field Apparel. They're great dudes, and they're big Indiana supporters. And, I dig those folks out there. They're great people. They're great at what they do, and I wish them all continued success. But I really hope they take a big L on September 25th to give them back-to-back losses against Moonshine Throwdown teams, because we're going to talk about losing the Natty in soccer to the Herd. But still, this is a team that could start 1-3, and you'll be like, great, we're going to open conference play at home against UTSA, one of the favorites in the West, and we're 1-3, and these guys are all full of crap because it just ain't working. And then the next thing you know, you go on a big run because you're battle tested, and Conference USA doesn't know what hit them. All of a sudden they think, well, maybe Western wasn't that good, and bam, 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 bam. We've talked about this potentially being the dawn of the second, I don't want to call it the Brom era, because Helton was there for that too. So this is Helton era 2.0, really, where yesteryear averaged almost 45 points a game, and then Western couldn't get over 24 points a game for the last 4 years. So you've got a lot of students on campus right now that haven't been privy to those super high-octane offenses, those points and bunches and chunk play after chunk play. And Western Kentucky football was just much must-see football for several years, and it would be really great to have that back again. I don't know that you're sneaking up on anybody, Steve, at this point. I really don't know, especially in a Conference USA East division teams. You might sneak up on teams like Indiana and Michigan State, who probably like, Western Kentucky, I'm not even sure what conference they play in. You're going to get that level of disrespect, but I don't think, as far as the Old Dominions go, the Charlottes go, the Florida Twins go, and the Herd goes, I don't think the Western's sneaking up on anybody, because they're on the schedule every year, no matter what. But anyway, I digress. We just want to see lots of points, lots of excitement. And I'm going to echo the one other point that Steven made. If you don't have a season ticket yet, if you're planning on like, I'll play wait and see, we'll see how they do before I make it. What the heck are you waiting on? Like, what are you doing for 6 Saturdays, or I don't know how many home games you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. What are you doing for 6 Saturdays in Bowling Green, Kentucky, that you can't go out for 3 hours and support the Tops? 22,113 seats in that building ought to have an ass in them. I mean, what else are you doing for 3 hours? Go out and have a good time with some people and rekindle some friendships and relationships and laugh and joke and watch the Toppers pile up yards and points. But anyway, we're gonna continue the series coming up this week. We're gonna bang out a few more episodes. We're gonna start talking about defense and see what the Tops are bringing back. They portaled in and portaled out a lot of guys in those positions too on the defensive side of the ball. So we'll get into that this week, and we edge closer and closer and closer to games. So, Steve, let's get out of here this week, and well, you can take us out.
Yeah, I wish I was rocking the Chrome Dome right now, but it won't fit over my AirPods. But go, mommy, go Tops.
Go Hurts. It's the Moonshine Throwdown podcast. We'll see you later this week. Later.